To celebrate the 15th anniversary of Dave Filoni's Clone Wars, I'm taking a stroll down memory lane to see if Clone Wars is as good as we remembered, or are we just riding a high of nostalgia. So join me today to see if Clone Wars truly is peak television. Season 3 is comprised of 22 episodes with 8 arcs, being the Camino arc, the second Mandalore arc, the Hutts and the Underworld arc, the Padme arc, the Witches and Monsters arc, the Secrets of Mortis arc, the Citadel arc, and the Lost Padawan arc, as well as 3 episodic storylines being Supply Lines, Sphere of Influence, and Assassin. With all once again varying in quality, although some episodes feel like they're out of Season 1, and not the good kind of Season 1 episodes. At least the first 2 episodes are peak Clone Wars, but oh boy, the majority of this season is not. Like Season 2, this season also has a subtitle called Secrets Revealed, which is named after the second best arc of the season. Clone Cadets might actually be the strongest opener to any season of Clone Wars. Well, maybe except for Revival in Season 5, for very obvious reasons. The episode is an origin story for Domino Squad, you know, clones that got brutally murdered all the way back in Episode 5. We see them fail a bit too many times, until they clutch up at the end of the episode, but who the hell cares because the best clone in the franchise was introduced in this episode, 99. A defective clone that got put on janitor duty due to not being physically able to engage in combat. He somewhat acts as a mentor figure for Domino Squad, encouraging them not to give up. Heavy even gives him his medal as a sign of gratitude. Oh, no, now his sacrifice is even sadder. It's a bit weird that clone cadets are trained by bounty hunters instead of like Jedi or more experienced clones, but I guess it's fitting since they spawned from a bounty hunter.
Again, it's like poetry, so if they rhyme. Every stanza kind of rhymes with the last one.
The brain guy is a fucking dickhead though. Fuck this guy. As one last nitpick, the ARC Trooper helmets are so off looking. It's like a cursed hybrid between the Phase 1 and Phase 2 helmet designs. In the second episode of the ARC, shit goes down. Oh, and we're chronologically post Season 1 now. The droid army attacked Tapoka City using aqua droids, but Asajj Ventress is stealthily making her way through the cloning center to steal the clone DNA. Which, yeah, it doesn't work, but the saddest part of this arc is the death of 99. At least in the end, Echo and Fives get promoted to ARC Troopers. This is once again the best opener to any season of Clone Wars, with the only other season opener coming close being Revival from Season 5. The scene where 99 realizes that Heavy died is just soul-crushing. Fantastic arc once again. We're back to Ryloth again for this episode, where Master Ima Gun Dai. I see what you did there, very funny. Master Dai and his group of clones have to aid Hera's dad as they wait for assistance from the Republic, who are unable to send help due to the Separatist blockade above Ryloth. So Bail Organa and goddamn Jar Jar Binks go to Toydaria to ask the king for permission to use the planet as a supply staging base. But due to the Separatist advisor in Toydaria, they gotta argue their point, because it turns out this episode is a prequel to Season 1, where Toydaria is yet to be a neutral system. None of this matters in the end because Jar Jar somehow distracts the Separatists as the Republic begins to move supplies to aid the front lines of Ryloth. Unsurprisingly, Master Dai, well, he dies. It's a decent episode for sure, but not really one that I'm itching to rewatch in the near future. Well, this certainly is an episode, alright. The new chairman of Pandora's daughters get held for ransom by the Separatists because it turns out Pandora is a neutral system and is being pushed to join a side in the war, with Dooku taking it a step further by kidnapping his daughters, so the chairman doesn't have a choice but to join the Separatists. So Ahsoka and Senator Chi-Chi start snooping around a Separatist capital ship in search of the chairman's daughter. Meanwhile, the chairman finds out Greedo, yes, Greedo, was paid by Dooku to kidnap one of his daughters. In the end, one of the daughters gets rescued by Ahsoka and Chi-Chi aboard the Separatist ship, and the other is saved by the chairman inside a random ass bar in Mos Eisley. Not much else to say about this episode, it just sort of exists and isn't really bad nor good, just meh, I suppose. At least this episode has the return of the Inspector. Moving on. Well, it's safe to say this is definitely the worst Mandalore arc in the show. This arc focuses more on the corruption within the Mandalorian government, with the not at all sus Prime Minister allowing these guys to set up shop in Mandalore illegally, which leads to a bunch of kids getting poisoned, so Satine and Padme investigate, find the criminals, and arrest them. But instead of setting up a crime scene, they just burn down the building along with all their evidence. Okay. To follow up on the corruption theme of this arc, Ahsoka goes on work experience in a school on Mandalore to teach younglings that corruption is bad. It also turns out Corky, Satine's nephew, which will become important in a minute. Corky and his friends go snooping and uncover the Prime Minister's evil plot of dealing with criminals, and after getting caught, tries to cover it up by ransacking Satine's penthouse and throwing her in jail. After Corky finds this out, he almost gets killed by the corrupt police force. So, just the regular police force. Until Ahsoka agrees to help them, which after a bit of manipulation, frees Satine and throws the Prime Minister behind bars for the next 2 seasons. As I said before, this Mandalorian arc in particular isn't that great. I wouldn't even call it good, just very mid. No, it's not looking good for this season. Hopefully the next couple episodes improve. This episode's okay. Ahsoka gets visions of Padme getting trick-shot by Aurora Singh, who miraculously survived after crashing to Slave 1 last season, and was hired by none other than Zero the Hutt, JFK Padme, which is foiled each time by Ahsoka. This episode doesn't really have any stakes since we know Padme has to survive Clone Wars, so all tension is immediately lost. It's not looking good for Season 3. This sure is an arc, alright. The first episode of the arc focuses on C-3PO and R2-D2 grocery shopping, when they randomly get kidnapped by Cad Bane to extract classified information about a new Senate building under construction in Coruscant. Cad Bane gets the plans, wipes the droid's memories of getting nabbed, and fucks off to Jabba's palace, where he then eavesdrops a Zoom meeting between the Hutts, resulting in him getting hired to Off-Zero because he's a liability. TLDR, Obi-Wan and Quinlan Vos, who's a very obvious parody of action heroes. He's a great character. Unfortunately, this is the only Clone Wars episode he makes appearance in. Anyway, together they go after Zero, but oh no, Zero actually gets betrayed by his Discord gamer girl in the end. I'm gonna keep it absolutely 100 with you, Chief. I'm really not feeling it about this season. We are nearly halfway through, and only 3 episodes have actually been enjoyable. I'm sorry if I'm being overly negative, but there's little to nothing for me to work with here. We pray the next arc is at least decent. Let's move on. This is fine, but holy shit is this a godsend compared to everything after the 3rd episode. One thing I'll commend this arc for is that we actually get to see the Separatist Senate, which is actually the British Parliament. The main point of this arc is to show there's heroes on both sides of the war, hence the name of the episode. We even see Ahsoka grow close to someone outside of not just the Jedi Order, but the Republic itself, in the form of Lux, who later on in the show will be a very important plot device. Twice, even. As a side tangent too, there's a continuity break in this arc. The Padme arc is supposed to be chronologically set before Anaconda Far's death in Season 2. Ahsoka still has her Season 3 redesign. Back on track, Padme illegally visits an old friend on the Separatist-controlled world, also turns out to be a Separatist senator. Essentially, Padme tries to make peace to end the Clone War, but of course, we can't have that happen yet, so her friend is mysteriously killed in the next episode. Speaking of which, we open after a droid suicide bombing on Coruscant's power supply to show that the Separatists are not willing to surrender under any circumstance. Keep the Clone War going, which results in another vote for extra clone funding. From here, it gets a bit iffy. It turns out the banking clan was unfairly price gouging the Republic, making them seem pretty traitorous, resulting in Anaconda Far getting jumped and Padme nearly getting killed. It all works out in the end though. After talking to her handmaid, Tekla, Padme comes up with an idea for a speech and prevents extra clone spending. It's an okay arc, although it kinda falls off in the 2nd episode. Like, how do we go from mass droid bombings to money laundering? Finally, a good episode. Concerned with Ventress's growth and power, Sidious orders Dooku to execute Ventress because he suspects that Dooku is training Ventress to help overthrow him. Which, yeah, that's exactly what he was doing. You know, thinking about it, there's a lot of similarities between Dooku and Vader, in both canon and legends. Both were powerful Jedi corrupted by Palpatine, both were forced to kill a member of the Jedi Council, instantly regretting it, both viewed the Jedi Order as corrupt, both trained an apprentice with dual lightsabers to overthrow Palpatine, both ended up trying to game in said apprentice after getting found out, both got a replacement student that forged their own path out of revenge, both of their masters turned Luke. Interesting connections, whether intentional or not, but back to Clone Wars. After getting left for dead, Ventress makes her way back to Dathomir to rejoin the Night Sisters, who along with Mother Talzin make their first ever appearance in Clone Wars. Ventress, along with 2 other Night Sisters, hatch a plan to assassinate Dooku by using magic to make themselves invisible, and using lightsabers once owned by Jedi to fake their identities, along with poisoning Dooku to cloud his connection to the Force. Now with all that on their side, you think they defeat him, right? No. It just makes you wonder how he managed to let himself get killed by Anakin in Revenge of the Sith, because he was on some other shit here, while being drugged by the way. Feeling antsy after almost getting absolutely demolished, Dooku goes to Mother Talzin in need of a new assassin to take on as his apprentice. So Ventress trains and brainwashes Maul's brother, Savage Opress, to become Dooku's new apprentice. This guy is by far one of the coolest and coldest Clone Wars original characters, but ignore the fact that his name is literally just Bad Guy McEvil. On his first mission, Savage is tasked with killing killing a Jedi and their Padawan, to which he executes flawlessly, which alerts the Jedi of his existence after the Jedi bodies are brought back to Coruscant by, oh my god, is that Delta Squad from the hit game Star Wars Republic Commando, released in 2005 for the original Xbox and PC, that are getting a remaster on PS4, PS5, Nintendo Switch, Steam, Xbox Series X, and Xbox Series S in 2021? You should play Republic Commando if that wasn't obvious enough. Also, please, Disney, I'm begging you, please bring them back. I'll do anything. Anyway, unfortunately, this is their first and only appearance in the entirety of Clone Wars. But you know what? At least the show made them canon. Obi-Wan and the Master Negotiator go to Dathomir to confront Mother Talzin about the actions of Savage, which she obviously denies, and manages to successfully deceive the Jedi duo. Meanwhile, we get to see how brutal and unforgiving Dooku is when it comes to training his apprentices. Fitting for a Sith Lord. On one last mission to prove himself, Dooku sends Savage to Toydaria to capture the king, which doesn't go well, to put it lightly. Now we get some juicy drama as Ventress's plan falls into place, and with the help of Savage, they face Dooku together, which falls apart instantly, as Dooku manages to break Savage's brainwashing by electrocuting him, causing Savage to turn on both of them, leaving to do his own thing while Ventress almost kills Dooku and in return almost gets killed herself. Oh, and Anakin and Obi-Wan were also there. The episode ends on a massive cliffhanger with Mother Talzin doxing Maul, affirming that he survived his division with Obi-Wan on Naboo. So with Tracker on hand, Savage leaves to find his brother. Overall, this arc was a massive improvement compared to pretty much everything we've witnessed this season, and I'm happy to report, at least for the next 6 episodes, the quality stays consistently great. Things are looking up for Season 3. We're here at last, the best arc of Season 3 and one of the very best arcs Clone Wars has to offer. The arc begins with the Jedi Council receiving a distress signal dating back to the Old Republic era. So Anakin, Ahsoka, and Obi-Wan are sent to investigate and end up blacking out, only to find themselves in a mysterious world that has an incredibly strong connection to the Force, where they encounter the daughter, the son, and the father, who are essentially Force gods. Except for the father, but like, he might as well be. Also as a note, the father himself says the daughter and the son are not the physical embodiments of the light and dark side of the Force, but like, they might as well be with their designs. Anyway, the father's days are limited and needs someone to replace him to keep his children in check. So who better to take his place than Sky Guy himself, who, by the way, solos both the daughter and the son at the same time, proving that he really is the strongest Jedi. Well, canon Jedi. In an effort to turn Anakin to the dark side, the son turns Ahsoka evil and forces her to fight both Anakin and Obi-Wan, which is where everything gets a bit crazy. Oh, okay, crazier by this arc standards. As the daughter sacrifices herself to save the father, causing the balance of the Mortis world to fall out of whack, being fully plunged into the dark side of the Force, but at the sacrifice of the daughter, Ahsoka gets revived. You know, if I had a nickel for every time Ahsoka was revived in relation to the Mortis gods, I'd have 2 nickels, which isn't a lot, but it's weird that it happened twice. By the way, Red Force Lightning is so fucking cool. From here, shit gets even crazier. The son fully turns Anakin into Vader by showing him the future, tricking Anakin into joining him, as in return, he will help Anakin to essentially prevent Revenge of the Sith from happening, which would, you know, just have a small change in the outcome of the series. So with Youngling Killer 9000 at his side, the son plans to leave the Mortis world, but is stopped by Obi-Wan, Ahsoka, and the father, who dies in the process along with the son, and Anakin's memories of the future are wiped. The end. Christ, this arc is fucking insane, man, and that was just a surface level view of this arc. Like, we get some crazy stuff such as the return of Qui-Gon Jinn, with Liam Neeson reprising his role, the destruction of Alderaan, and even a glimpse at adult Ahsoka looking very different compared to her Rebels counterpart. And that's not even covering the unused stuff. Darth Revan and Darth Bane were meant to show up. Could you imagine? They got Darth Bane looking like a Final Fantasy character in this concept art though. I gotta admit, this is a very welcome change of pace for this horrendous season. Honestly, the Mortis arc would have made for an incredible Clone Wars movie, especially over that. Amazing stuff. It's another good Season 3 arc. The squad has to roll up to the Citadel in order to free Evan Peely and Tarkin, who know a seriously OP cheat code that will make traversing the galaxy easier for the Republic. So obviously they can't let it fall into Separatist hands, but there's a catch. The Citadel is a highly guarded fortress, so to sneak in, the gang freezes themselves in carbonite, with R2 and a group of reprogrammed battle droids being their only hope to get close to the Citadel. There's also this side plot where Anakin doesn't want Ahsoka to go because it's too dangerous, so she has to prove herself of being worthy to go on future high-stakes missions throughout the arc. While we see Anakin and Tarkin get close and even agree on certain ideologies, this This wouldn't be Clone Wars without losing some allies along the way, such as the reprogrammed battle droids who even get a farewell scene.
It was an honor to serve under you, sir.
Echo definitely gets game ended, and Master Peel is given a Viking death, but not before giving the Game Genie code to Ahsoka. In the end, everything works out, and the arc ends on a somewhat foreboding note, with Anakin and Tarkin shaking hands over the Imperial March. I sure hope that doesn't mean anything. It's a pretty good arc, even if it does feel like it should have been a two-parter instead of a 3-episode arc. Plus, seeing Tarkin pre-Empire was cool, even getting a glimpse at how he's already close with Palpatine, and to see his somewhat resentment of the Jedi. At least this season went out on a bang. What do you mean there's one more arc? I said enough, but fuck, this season is ass. You know, you could have ended on a high note, but you had to go ahead with an extra arc. Don't get me wrong, the concept is a decent idea of Padawans being abducted and hunted for sport, but this is just boring. Why is this arc named after Chewbacca? He's barely here. And why is it called his return? This is his first appearance. Okay, moving on. Basically, Ahsoka gets kidnapped by lizards, and we see Star Wars Hunger Games, which ends with the Wookiees showing up to save everyone in the end. I don't care for this arc, and it's really sad that this is one of the few arcs that solely focuses on Ahsoka, because really, that's the only positive about this arc. Well, that and the Crystal Skull from Indiana Jones making an appearance. And somehow I forgot to mention during the Season 1 retrospective, in the background of the Ryloth arc, you can see the Covenant from Raiders. That's neat. Also, this should have been called the Lost Padawan arc, or Hunt for the Padawans, instead of Chewbacca Returns. Yes, I'm still hung up on that. In conclusion, this season fucking sucks. Like, we have sunk low after quite possibly one of the best seasons, if not the best season. There's just so much padding and what feels like unnecessary filler, and I'm not even talking about the episodes themselves, but just scenes being inserted to fill runtime. Really, if it wasn't for the incredible opening arc, the Mortis arc, or the Night Sisters arc, you could very easily skip this season. In fact, I'd even recommend only watching those arcs, along with the Hutt's arc and the Citadel arc, since the Hutt Council is important later on when Maul returns, and the second episode of the Citadel arc sets up Echo's character later in the show. When it comes to a score for this season, I'm torn between a 6 and an incredibly weak 7. Since again, there's some good, which really carries the season, but god, this is nowhere near the quality of season 1. So I'll sell it for a 6.5. On the bar side, the show doesn't really get worse than this, so it's all uphill from here, even if the bar is on the floor. While I've been maybe a bit too harsh on this season, it's not that bad by today's standards, especially for Disney Plus slop, which I know isn't saying much because anything is better than borderline brain rot. If you like this season, more power to you, but personally, this isn't my cup of tea. It's just fairly boring and incredibly forgettable. At least next season is better.